Okay, so let's get into something that's been making the rounds lately. This whole Sean Diddy Combs situation. You've probably at least seen the headlines about these baby oil parties.
Yes.
And like me, I'm sure you're wondering what's actually going on.
Right.
Is this just like weird celebrity behavior,
Yeah.
or is this something more sinister going on here?
Well, it definitely sounds on the surface like just a tabloid headline.
Right.
But if we look closer,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to unpack.
Exactly. I think we should try to go beyond the headlines
Yeah.
and try to figure out the why.
Right.
Why baby oil?
Right.
Like, what could possibly be the thought process behind using something like that in a party setting?
That's the question.
Yeah.
We got to understand the context here
Yeah.
and look at the potential psychological dynamics at play.
Okay, so let's start with the obvious.
Yeah.
Baby oil. I mean, it just seems so innocent, almost childlike. What is the significance of that?
Well, yeah, think about the associations we have with baby oil. You know, it's about vulnerability, helplessness, needing to be cared for. It evokes a sense of powerlessness,
Right.
of being dependent on someone else.
So you're saying that introducing baby oil into a party environment
Yeah.
could be a way to deliberately create a sense of vulnerability among the guests?
It's a possibility worth considering,
Yeah.
especially when you factor in the power dynamics at play here.
Right.
We're talking about Diddy,
Yeah.
a figure with immense influence and wealth.
Of course.
You know, his parties aren't just social gatherings.
Right.
They're opportunities to network, to get noticed, to climb the social ladder.
Oh, yeah. You're at a Diddy party.
Yeah.
You're already feeling the pressure to impress, to fit in.
Yeah.
And then you add this element to the baby oil, this
Yeah.
sense of losing control.
Exactly.
This sense of losing control.
Exactly.
Becoming more physically vulnerable.
And that's where things can get really murky. Psychologically, it creates an environment ripe for manipulation. When people feel physically and emotionally vulnerable,
Yeah.
they're more susceptible to suggestion,
Right.
less likely to assert their boundaries.
So it's not just about Diddy's personal preferences or eccentricities.
Right.
It's about how those preferences, combined with his status and the environment he allegedly created,
Yeah.
could be used to potentially exert control over others.
It's a disturbing thought, but yes,
Yeah.
that's the implication.
Yeah.
And that's what makes this situation so complex.
Right.
We're not just talking about a party gone wrong.
Right.
We're talking about potential manipulation, the possible exploitation of power imbalances.
Right. And that brings us to the question of consent. If someone is feeling pressured, vulnerable, and potentially manipulated, can they truly give informed consent?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Legally and ethically,
Yeah.
consent has to be freely given without coercion or manipulation.
Right.
But proving those elements,
Yeah.
especially in a situation like this,
Right.
is incredibly challenging.
Okay, so we've got this seemingly innocent substance, baby oil,
Right.
being used in a context that raises serious questions about power,
Yeah.
manipulation, and consent.
Yeah.
But how does this connect to the broader culture of celebrity?
Yeah.
I mean, we've all heard stories about wild celebrity parties.
Yeah.
But is there something specific about this case that makes it particularly alarming?
What's interesting here is that it shines a light on the often hidden dynamics of celebrity culture.
Right.
You know, the world of music and entertainment in particular thrives on image,
Yeah.
exclusivity, and the constant pursuit of success.
So you're saying that in a world where your social standing, your connections, your access to opportunity can depend on being in the right circles.
Right.
The pressure to conform can be immense.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And that pressure can lead people to make choices
Yeah.
they might not otherwise make,
Yeah.
to push their boundaries, to tolerate behavior they find uncomfortable or even unacceptable.
It's like the price of admission,
Yeah.
like the unspoken rules of the game.
Right.
You want to be a part of the inner circle.
Yeah.
You want to reap the rewards of success.
Yeah.
So you go along with it, even if it means compromising your values
Right.
or putting yourself in potentially vulnerable situations.
And that's the danger
Yeah.
when the stakes are that high.
Yeah.
The lines between ambition,
Yeah.
peer pressure,
Right.
and manipulation can become blurred.
So this isn't just about Diddy and baby oil.
Right.
It's about understanding the larger system at play,
Yeah.
the pressures that drive people to make certain choices,
Yeah.
and the potential for those pressures to be exploited.
Exactly. This case forces us to confront some uncomfortable truths about the nature of power, the complexities of consent, and the often unspoken rules that govern our social interactions.
Right. Especially in high-stakes environments like the music industry.
And that brings us to the next layer of this deep dive. If this behavior is happening at the top,
Yeah.
with someone as powerful as Diddy setting the tone,
Right.
what does that say about the culture as a whole?
Yeah.
What does it tell us about the people around him, the guests at these parties?
That's where we need to look at the psychology of group dynamics.
Yeah.
And how the desire to belong, to be accepted, can make people complicit in harmful behavior.
So it's not just about Diddy's actions, it's about understanding the roles that others play in perpetuating these dynamics.
Exactly. We're going to delve into those roles, explore the motivations and pressures that might lead people to participate in these kinds of activities, even if they have reservations.
It sounds like we're about to enter some ethically and psychologically complicated territory.
We are, but it's important territory to explore because it helps us understand the nuances of this situation and the broader implications for our own lives and interactions. All right, let's take a deep breath and get into it. We're going to unpack the psychology of group dynamics, the power of social pressure, and the ways in which even seemingly harmless activities can be used to create an environment of coercion and compromise.
Buckle up. This is where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
So we were talking about these parties
Right.
and this culture of ambition and exclusivity.
Yeah.
Let's imagine for a second.
Yeah.
You're a young, aspiring artist.
Yeah.
You find yourself at one of Diddy's gatherings. What kind of pressure are you feeling?
I mean, talk about being starstruck.
Yeah.
Like, you're surrounded by industry heavyweights,
Right.
people that you admire,
Yeah.
people who could potentially, like, make or break your career.
Huh.
I can only imagine the feeling of, like, I need to make a good impression.
Exactly. And in that environment,
Yeah,
the lines can get blurred.
right.
What might seem like innocent fun or a way to let loose could actually be a calculated move to see how far people are willing to go to fit in.
So it's not just about having a good time, it's about proving yourself,
Right.
showing that you're one of them.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that's where the baby oil comes back in.
Mm.
It becomes a symbol,
Right.
a test.
Okay.
Think of it like a hazing ritual.
Right.
Are you willing to participate?
Yeah.
Are you willing to push your boundaries?
Wow. That's a really unsettling thought.
Yeah.
I never considered how baby oil could be used in that way. But it makes sense in this context.
Yeah.
You're essentially being asked to prove your loyalty,
Right.
your willingness to play by the unspoken rules.
And remember, this is all happening in a setting
Yeah.
where Diddy is the ultimate authority figure.
Of course.
He's not just the host. He's a gatekeeper,
Right.
a kingmaker.
Yeah.
Saying no to him or even just appearing hesitant
Yeah.
could have real consequences.
So the pressure to conform is coming from multiple directions.
Yeah.
From Diddy himself, from the desire to impress the other guests, and from this overarching fear of missing out on opportunities.
It's a perfect storm of social pressure.
Right.
And that's what makes these allegations so troubling.
Yeah.
Even if no one is explicitly forced to do anything,
Right.
the environment itself could be coercive.
It's almost like a psychological trap. You're
Yeah.
caught between your own discomfort and the fear of being ostracized, of losing your chance to be part of the in crowd.
And that fear can be incredibly powerful.
Right.
Especially when you're dealing with someone like Diddy, whose approval can open doors
Of course.
and whose disapproval can shut them just as quickly.
It's a reminder that coercion doesn't always involve physical force or threats.
Right.
It can be subtle, insidious, and deeply ingrained in the culture.
Exactly. And this is where we need to talk about
Yeah.
the broader implications of this case.
Okay.
It goes beyond Diddy and baby oil.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing how power dynamics can be exploited in any setting.
So what we're seeing here is a microcosm of something that happens in all sorts of environments. Workplaces, schools, even families.
Absolutely. Think about how often we feel pressured to say yes to things
Right.
we don't want to do
Yeah.
just to please someone in authority
Right.
or to avoid rocking the boat.
Oh, I've definitely been there.
Yeah.
You don't want to disappoint your boss.
Right.
Or you don't want to be seen as difficult or uncooperative. So you end up going along with things even if they make you uncomfortable.
And that's how these kinds of situations perpetuate themselves.
Yeah.
The more we tolerate these subtle forms of coercion, the more normalized they become.
So it's not just about holding Diddy accountable for his alleged actions. It's about recognizing our own role in challenging these power dynamics wherever we encounter them.
Exactly. We need to be more aware of the subtle ways coercion can manifest.
Right.
And we need to find the courage to speak up, to set boundaries, and to support others who are being pressured or manipulated.
It's about creating a culture where consent is truly respected, where people feel safe to say no without fear of retribution.
And that starts with each of us. We need to examine our own behavior, our own relationships, and ask ourselves, are we contributing to a culture of coercion, or are we actively working to dismantle it?
Yeah. Those are tough questions.
Yeah.
But they're essential ones.
Yeah.
And this whole baby oil scandal, as strange as it might seem, has forced us to confront them.
It's a wake-up call.
Yeah.
A reminder that we can't afford to be passive observers.
Right.
We need to be active participants in creating a world where power is used responsibly.
Right.
And consent is truly valued.
Okay, so we've talked about the symbolism of baby oil, the psychology of group dynamics, the pressures to conform, and the subtle ways coercion can operate. But where does this leave us? What are the practical takeaways for our listeners? How can we apply these insights to our own lives?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's one we're going to explore in more detail as we move forward.
Okay.
We're going to talk about how to recognize the red flags of manipulative behavior.
Okay.
How to set healthy boundaries. And how to build a support system that will empower you to speak up and challenge those in power.
It sounds like we've got a lot more ground to cover.
We do.
Let's take a deep breath and dive into the next layer of this complex and fascinating story. So we've really kind of dug deep into this Diddy situation, and I think it's safe to say we've got a lot to think about. But let's try to shift gears a bit.
Yeah.
Talk about what we can learn from all of this.
Okay.
What are some red flags we should be looking out for in our own lives? And how can we protect ourselves from falling into similar traps?
That's a crucial question. And the first step is to recognize that these kinds of power dynamics and subtle forms of manipulation can exist anywhere, not just in the world of celebrities and exclusive parties. We might encounter them at work, in our social circles, even in our personal relationships.
So how do we spot those red flags? What are the telltale signs that someone might be trying to manipulate or coerce us?
One of the biggest red flags is that feeling of discomfort or unease that you mentioned earlier.
Right.
If someone is pushing you to do something that doesn't feel right, or if you feel pressured to say yes when you really want to say no, that's your intuition telling you to pay attention.
It's like that gut feeling that something's off.
Yeah.
Even if you can't quite put your finger on it.
Exactly. And it's important to trust that feeling.
Okay.
Don't dismiss it or try to rationalize it away. It's your internal alarm system.
Right.
And it's usually right.
So we need to listen to our gut instincts.
Yeah.
But what about those situations where we feel like we can't say no? Like when it's our boss asking us to do something, or someone who holds a lot of power over us?
That's where setting boundaries comes in. It's about having the courage to say no, to assert your needs and limits, even when it feels uncomfortable or risky.
But how do you do that effectively?
Yeah.
Especially when you're dealing with someone who's used to getting their way.
It starts with being clear and direct about your boundaries. Practice saying no in a firm but respectful way.
Right.
And remember, you don't need to justify or apologize for your decision.
Okay.
Your no is enough.
That's easier said than done for a lot of people, though, right?
It is.
What if the person's pushing back or trying to guilt you into changing your mind?
That's where having a strong support system is key.
Okay.
Surround yourself with people you trust, people who will have your back, people who will validate your feelings and encourage you to stand up for yourself.
It's like having a team of cheerleaders in your corner.
Yeah.
Reminding you that you're not alone and that it's okay to prioritize your own well-being.
Exactly. And remember, speaking up can also help empower others to do the same.
Right.
When we challenge manipulative behavior, we create a ripple effect that can shift the culture as a whole.
It's like that saying, be the change you want to see in the world. If we want to live in a world where consent is truly respected and power is used responsibly, we have to start by setting those standards in our own lives and interactions.
Absolutely. And don't underestimate the power of your voice.
Yeah.
Even if it feels like a small act of resistance, speaking up can make a big difference.
So this whole deep dive has been about more than just dissecting a celebrity scandal.
Right.
It's been about giving our listeners the tools and knowledge to navigate these complex power dynamics in their own lives.
It's about empowering you to trust your instincts, set healthy boundaries, and create a culture of respect and consent in all your relationships.
And remember, you are not alone in this.
Yeah.
There are resources available, people who care, and a growing movement of individuals who are committed to creating a world where everyone feels safe, respected, and empowered to make their own choices.
So keep those conversations going, challenge the status quo, and never be afraid to speak your truth.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you've learned something new, gained some valuable insights, and feel empowered to make a positive impact in your own world. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay true to yourself.
Dive into the shadows of human nature with the Lost Tapes podcast, where the truths hidden beneath our daily lives are brought to light. We uncover the layers of complex relationships, hidden emotions, and raw realities, from mental health to life's hardest truths. No topic is off limits, no story too raw. The Lost Tapes podcast is your invitation to understand the unspoken facets of life. Join us and let's explore life's hidden sides, one story at a time. Don't miss out on more hidden truths. Subscribe now to the Lost Tapes podcast. Stay curious. Stay informed. Click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon to never miss an episode.